What surprised you the most about sex when you lost your virginity? Oh God. I got a kidney infection after my first time. Had to go to ER. I've always had urinary tract problems growing up as a virgin, so I thought it would just go away, because in the past they would clear up on their own. Not after my first time. I almost fainted in my study group and one of my college classmates had to drive me to ER, and turns out I had a full-blown kidney infection. It got so bad. Yeah. Pee after sex, people. Run to the bathroom afterwards if you have to. Also, I completely avoid missionary because that's what would increase my chances of getting one. God, the amount of pressure we ascribe to it. It's a status symbol to have sex, to be good at sex, to sex with the right partners, to not be too boring, to use the right positions. Like, I wish someone would have just told me. Missionary is a staple for a reason. The emotional connection that you have with your partner is gonna be much more important than their social status or how attractive they are. Like, don't get me wrong, I was in my 20s and too arrogant to actually listen to any of the advice I clearly should have followed, but I wish someone would have said so all the same. Well, we ended up alone and horizontal with this girl, and I was very nervous about doing the right thing. Starting with just sticking it the right place, no questions asked. She took my schlong in her hand and guided it straight where it belonged. I was like, wow, you can do that. Never saw anyone do it in porn. That act of cooperation is something I remember most vividly from that day. Hey, opposite for me. It's too dry and it hurts. Why isn't this like porn? Edit, adding here. Sometimes women's and men's genitals not responding has nothing to do with the partner and everything to do with previous abuse, media messages, societal shaming, etc. Sometimes it's hard to get it up as a woman when you were raised for 18+ years getting whiplash from Christian messages of if you like sex, you're a disgusting slut, and media messages of if you don't do or get turned on by X/Y/Z, then you're a prude and men have good reason to not like you. You're just this random girl trying to get in touch with your body that everyone says is wrong in some way. So frankly, it makes a lot of sense when you find later in life that you can't let go and be open enough to enjoy sex without your mind being blasted with these thoughts that just shut you down. Even more so if you were ever sexually assaulted. Anyway, I recommend to everyone Come As You Are. Amazing book about this. First was how fast, hard the girl wanted me to do it. She was more experienced, but my impression was that it should be slow and delicate and then ramp up. That was not the case. However, she wanted it like bang 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 right away, and then I didn't come because I was pretty nervous. I found out through more experience that being nervous and not coming was common for me with new or casual partners, but I have no issue completing the task once I'm more comfortable being intimate with the person. If I could piggyback on this. In high school, my first was an info that was on the rebound from a breakup. It was fun, obviously, and I had feelings for her, but it didn't last. That was followed by a girlfriend who had chosen to be celibate, which I totally respected. I was also deeply, madly in love with her. Still have those feelings, after all these years, actually, and the furthest we ever got was kissing, making out. I'll tell you right now, because of the emotional connection, kissing the second woman was far better, way more emotionally fulfilling, than the actual sex with the first. One of my funniest sex stories is the time I was with a chick and she was allergic to the spermicide on certain condoms and handed me a special one that was unlubricated, had nothing on it. Well, that dry fucker was impossible to get on. I assume you're supposed to add your own lube. Now I know. Well, trying to wrangle my dick into that thing caused the poor guy to nope out and go soft. So after a quick brainstorm we got it hard and decided to go for the tried and true pull-out method. Well, things go alright. It was sex our first time together, but neither of our actual first time, and then comes the end. I pull out and with the force of a 12-gauge blast her right in the eye and absolutely cover her face and chest. Now I start dying laughing. She is pissed, because we'd had this conversation about coming on her face and she was adamantly against it. but with it being an accident because I didn't realize just how powerful my shot could be. The ridiculousness of the events leading up to it were too much and I was uncontrollably laughing. We didn't last long as a couple. The warmth caught me off guard my first time. I literally had no idea it would be warm. I have never done anything with a girl outside of making out and kissing boobs. No finger play or even seen a girl with panties off. Outside of porn or Playboy mags. I lost my virginity in the back seat of a car to an older girl who did all the work. But when I went in and felt the warmth I was shocked by it. Then I was shocked at how fast I came and apologized. I had to move my girlfriend's legs up so I could get in. For some reason, I thought her legs could just be flat on the bed. Also, how much closer it can bring you with someone you love. I thought that we were pretty close beforehand, but afterwards it was like we knew each other on a deeper level. Every look, touch, and kiss was suddenly just much more meaningful, and not just in a sexual way. The mess. I bled a lot and threw the sheets into the mattress. The duvet cover, pillowcases, fitted sheets, all total carnage. Sweat, body liquids, blood, everything. It's good the weather was nice the next day. I still have a photo of everything drying in the garden like a hang of shame. I started keeping towels, water and wet wipes next to the bed every time I would have sex again. It was a whole procedure. I don't have one now lol. Also, how much I like the feeling of another person orgasming. I like my own, but I like the other better, to the point of if I come and then my partner comes seconds later I come again. The sounds, the feeling, the little shakes, the way you just know, so good. I absolutely love the feeling, sight of someone else coming. For me it's very effective foreplay. Unfortunately I'm a woman and have a habit of having sex with men, so that doesn't really work out well for me. But it's knowing that I helped make that orgasm happen. It's just an absolutely invigorating feeling. And it's not like I can say hey, while I totally do want to fuck you I'd really rather just be in the room when you come, because for some reason that's weird. The slight moment of pain being a bit more than anticipated, but also gone way quicker than I expected. All the sex ed, internet horror stories of the hymen being broken and the first time being painful, bleeding and whatever, had me almost scared lol. But first few thrusts it was just like whoa okay maybe I have to tell him to stop, and right as I was about to say something, turned into Hawaii and never mind, never stop, lol. I also didn't know only like 1/3 of women can come vaginally and the rest can't. I wasn't expecting to come my first time necessarily. I heard horror stories of awkward sex too. I assumed my nerves would prevent me coming, but my first sex partner really gave his all and had more experience. He fucked me for like 2 hours. I was definitely not nervous and it was awesome. I just couldn't come because I didn't know my body well enough yet to know what I needed. How terrified I was afterwards. All I could think was please don't let her be pregnant. We used protection but what if it failed? And how much shame I felt. I knew that I shouldn't have. Not because it was a sin or wrong, but because I was so terrified it probably meant it was a bad risk to take. Every time after that was the same. Shame that I let my hormones get the best of me. I knew my wife was the woman I wanted to marry because that didn't happen. It felt right. Lot of comments here saying basically this, which I'm glad to see. Especially as a young man, society hypes up sex as being literally the best thing ever. You should trade your dignity for it. You should take risks for it. You should define your worth on it. You're not a real man until you've lost your virginity, etc. Turns out it's a good time, but not really more of a good time than plenty of other fun things. I honestly think sex ed needs to go more in this direction. No, don't have sex, kids. Your dick will fall off and you'll die screaming. Instead, hey guys, sex is fun, but don't do anything stupid for it. It's not worth it. If you wouldn't take a certain risk to ride a good roller coaster, or watch a good movie, or play a good video game, don't do it for sex. I was 17. I had been masturbating at least twice a day since I was 13 or 14. I had become an expert in smuggling porno mags into my house under my parents' noses. When the time came, I found it to be very complicated, having to wear a condom and all. It took away almost all the sensation. Plus it was her first time too, and the fact that she was wincing in what looked like agonizing pain didn't really make for a romantic mood either. Even though I was able to keep it hard, I didn't finish ... despite trying for 2 hours. After we were done, I dropped her off at her house, went back home and violently yanked it 3 times. We eventually tried it again and we got way better. The first time the condom broke was like dipping my dick in the sweetest, slipperiest heroin money can buy ... and it still does today. We got married 4 years later, and we're still together ... 20 years later. True story. Funny how life works, huh? I'm 19 now and this was 2 years ago. Social media being a big part of my teenagehood, I read out women explaining how quick, underwhelming it is. I thought it was gonna be 5 minutes at max, let alone half an hour. I didn't realize how destructive the porn industry is for boys, young men. BC he said it wasn't like what he had seen on the hub, which caused him to take so long. Movies have always made it seem like it's this long romantic gesture, or even porn making it seem like women can stay aroused for an hour plus after being impaled. No lube. My first time I was just very confused as to the location of the actual hole, and I would not accept assistance because I felt it was important to have that knowledge for myself. What surprised me was it was much further back than I initially thought. 20 minutes of grinding on each other before any actual penetration occurred, and then we stopped almost immediately because we were in my parents' house while they were home. A few things. How short it lasted. 15-year-old male at the time. Hormones were crazy, so I could come just by thinking about sex. How different her vagina tasted than I thought, and how hard it was to make it feel good for her. How far down her vagina was. I was used my dick and balls being where they are and kinda thought it would be about the same. The sounds, the wet sounds. God, what I heard made me about finished before I even got inside. Overall, vaginas are awesome. Premature ejaculation. I thought I'd at least be able to get condom on, but in all the excitement I just gushed, and oh my god I gushed so much ejaculate. In my embarrassment, I hid it in the sex towel instead of enjoying the moment and letting go on her stomach. She was so kind in assuring me it was okay and agreed to try again in a few minutes, and within a few minutes I was ready. A few minutes after that I was experienced. How easy it was to make my partner climax. Although I didn't know it at the time, I'd always been told how difficult it was, and how I would suck at it the first time, so I just assumed she was faking orgasms for my benefit. We'd been going out for a while before I talked to her about it, but then it turned out she never faked it, and was quite mad at me for thinking so. On the plus side, I was even better calibrated after finding out. And it turns out orgasms make people less angry at you. Reminds me of a friend I had growing up. All throughout high school he was popular, on this football team. Super nice guy that had girls hanging off of him. He told me about the first time he had sex. He put his dick in and froze. Said it was the weirdest thing he ever felt, so he pulled out. We're almost 40 now, and he hasn't had a relationship since high school. And seems super happy every time I see him. We're not that close anymore and we've never discussed if he's asexual or gay, but whatever it is, he's living his best life. I can't imagine what life would be like without worrying, putting time and effort into that entire aspect of human existence. So many surprises. Surprised by the blowjob. It felt amazing. It was the first time someone was actually nice to me physically speaking. Surprised by how long I could last. Damn, we changed position few times, we had so much complicity. Total fun. Surprised she told me she came 3 times. Okay, maybe she was flattering me. Surprised that I had to wait the age of 21 for it. Surprised that it was only $150. It's not quite the first time, but I think it's still valid, that sex is way better when you're emotionally intimate with a partner. To give the Cliff's Notes of my life story. Lost my V car late in college. Fell head over heels for that woman at the time. but I had a lot of growing up left to do, and I wasn't a particularly great boyfriend. She ended things. I devolved into neckbeardom and spent way too long focusing on every little thing I know. Felt that she'd done wrong, was lonely AF, but I decided that I was clearly just horny AF. Elected to try my damnedest to just get laid, because surely that will fix everything after a breakup. I saw it in movies, for goodness sake. Anyway, after swiping through dating apps for a few months, I finally found someone with low enough standards that she was willing to sleep with me. We went on a date and didn't really see eye to eye on anything. She was big into guns, hunting, and drinking and driving. I was a vegetarian for gun reform who rotates being the DD with my buddies. The one that sticks with me is how she said DDs are for pussies. Anyway, I was certain that I just wanted to get my dick wet. So I decided to sleep with this woman I had precisely nothing in common with and who I actively disliked as a person, and it was empty, hollow. I took care of her, then took care of myself. She just sorta starfished and wasn't all that enthused. I got the impression it was almost transactional for her. I just felt hollow, empty, and ashamed. My reflexive action after sex was to want to have any sort of pillow talk, discuss everything and be open and honest with one another, but I didn't feel enough of a connection to this woman to want to be vulnerable. I actively disliked her. It drove home that I hadn't spent the last few months being horny. I'd spent them being lonely. Had to make a bunch more mistakes along the way, because I'm human, an idiot. And one life lesson doesn't help you turn your life around. Still hurt some people in the process, regrettably, but eventually got it figured out a little bit better, and at least tried to make amends with the folks I mistreated. You don't get to undo all of your mistakes, and I've had to make peace with the fact that eventually I was apologizing to help myself, not the people I'd hurt. Had a few more flings, but this time with women I respected a bit more. I broke it off if I lost respect for them, before finally settling down and getting married. Doctor, horniness and lonesomeness go hand in hand. This is going to sound like a flex, but for me it was how I had to actually focus on coming. I just assumed I would need to concentrate on not coming, but after a while I was thinking this is awesome but I'd like to finish and I had to think about coming. I assume I just put too much pressure on myself. I can assure everyone that this wasn't a continuing issue, and since then I've prematurely ejaculated like a champ hundreds of times. That I was so fucking tiny. I didn't realize how small I was until the penetration happened. But also how fun it could be, with a long-term partner who really cares about you and prioritizes your comfort. My brain literally went. It started out with a kiss. How did it end up like this? 'Cause it was both of our first time and we died laughing and learning together and just taking things nice and slow made the whole experience so much easier, 'cause it took a lot of the pressure off. When you trust someone with your body and they trust you with theirs, it just makes for a nice experience each time there's an intimate moment and just paves the way for better experiences to come. How much it wasn't a big deal. I feel like before I lost my virginity it was the biggest deal in the world. I felt like an outcast and a failure for not having lost it. I probably thought about it every day several times a day. Then it turned out to be this casual, kind of silly thing. I had put it on a pedestal and now it's more like, I don't know, sports? Something I care about but doesn't define me. Like if I haven't caught a game in a while I definitely want one, but I don't judge myself for having other things going on. Lost my virginity pretty late, not waiting for marriage or anything, just for the right person. Someone I love who loves me also. My whole adult life men would treat me normally until they found out I'd never had sex and then start treating me like a child who didn't know anything about anything, despite me generally being more successful and accomplished than them. This led me to believe that sex was some huge life-changing experience that, once I had, I'd feel like an entirely different person, or like an adult, or just different than me in some way. Fast forward, I met the guy. We did a thing, and it was a beautiful, lovely experience, and still is to this day, but I was so shocked that I still felt like me afterwards and that really nothing had changed.